This is Louis, and unfortunately due to some copyright bullshit on my other video, I've been forced to move this video up to today. And I have to warn you that it's not positive, it's a rather negative commentary. But for this introduction, please be sure to go on over to JList and buy yourself some of that, that plastic pussy. And while you're at it, head on over to Play Asia and buy some kind of game. Now, I'm actually in the market for some kind of new game. I'm just not sure what it is just yet. Maybe it could be a visual novel from JList. But as I always say, be sure to visit the links in the description. So this is Louis, and this is going to be an unscripted commentary, although I am getting increasingly heated as this goes on. I'm getting stuck on the issue of this article from out of New York City, where if you are a Muslim or Sikh police officer for the NYPD, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Stop me if you've heard me say that phrase before, because I have talked about this numerous times in numerous videos where we have watched the gradual decay of secularism in America. And I want to make something very clear about this issue. If you go back and you watch the original video that I did about this, it was one of the early videos I did on this channel, where I talk about this issue of this Muslim girl who got a job at Abercrombie & Fitch, where it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and she won in an 8-1 ruling. Read the comment section of this article from the New York Times, where you have liberals, which is the audience of the New York Times. You see liberals in California, in New York, in Washington, all over the country, saying the exact same fucking thing. All of them say the exact same thing. And this is what I said in a stream to Crown T and Sargon recently, that America is an egalitarian society. And by that I mean Americans overwhelmingly, the majority of Americans overwhelmingly support egalitarianism. They support those principles. Even if they don't outright say it, they don't say, I'm an egalitarian, they support those principles. And this is an example of this being the case. Read the comment section here, where overwhelmingly people don't agree. They say, I'm not a bigot. I don't hate Sikhs. I don't hate Muslims. I don't hate religious people. But this is special rights for special people. This is not egalitarian. These are not individual rights. These are special rights for people based on their religion. And it goes beyond just very tight-knit fucking rulings. This is just like, you can do whatever the fuck you want according to these rulings. You can do whatever you want in the workplace if you are a Muslim or a Sikh. Whatever you want to do, you can do it because of rulings like this and because of what's happening in this country, which is the gradual decay of secularism. And the people do not support this. And I'm going to read you one person from California who got a bunch of thumbs up. So you know this is what people support. Never in a million years did I think I would agree with Justice Clarence Thomas, who's a notorious, infamous fucking conservative on the Supreme Court, on anything. But really, folks, if you can accept the concept that a business can legally have a dress code in the first place, you ought to not give religions a pass on them. This is someone expressing an egalitarian position. Even if they don't come right out and say, I'm an egalitarian, this is this person saying, I'm an egalitarian and I don't support this. This isn't egalitarian. This violates American values. This violates American principles. To do this, to do what the Supreme Court did, this is not an egalitarian standard. This is something that was fair, but is now unfair, and gives preference to Muslims and Sikhs, who can now do whatever the fuck they want in the workplace. And by the way, this case that I did the video on, this is one of the cases that led me to quit the ACLU. Because I am actually a civil libertarian. I am an egalitarian. And in this case, it wasn't. This isn't based on egalitarianism. This isn't based on the U.S. Constitution. This flies in the face of the U.S. Constitution. But I'm just going to leave it there. Then you have this case, where I had a bunch of people get on my fucking case, where they said, no, Louis, you're wrong. You're wrong. Sikhs should be able to do whatever the fuck they want in the military. If you join the military, the friends that you have that join the military, they're held to one standard. But you know what? This Sikh, he's allowed to do whatever the fuck he wants. What are you, against Sikhs? What are you, a racist? What are you, a bigot? No, he gets to do whatever the fuck he wants. And you know what? My issue with this is, it's not just egalitarianism. It's not just you know, everything that I've already mentioned, and I don't want to repeat myself. It's this. It's what we're not talking about. It's the fact that we are talking about diversity. We're talking about how many rules and standards we can violate for the sake of diversity and for the sake of special rights for religious people, where we don't want to talk about the gradual collapse of our government, where we don't want to talk about the fact that we are spending trillions of dollars that we can't account for. That who knows where they're going? The Pentagon sure as fuck doesn't know. We don't know where all the money's going, but what we can say is that our debt's growing and the fact that our institutions and our infrastructure is collapsing, and we have no power to do anything about it because we're too busy virtue signaling. And we're too busy looking at people like this saying, oh, he's such a good man. We're going to virtue signal on behalf of this man. Don't pay any attention to the fact that your fucking country's collapsing. Don't pay any attention to that. Don't pay any attention that China wants to become the new hegemon of the world. And that meanwhile, we're too busy talking about genders. Don't talk about anything like that. Let's talk about this guy. He's a nice guy. You know, Louis, there's some nice Sikh folk in Britain. You ought to care about that. You ought to care about our country's values. Well, you know what? I'm not British. I'm not British, and I'm not a dumb fuck. And I can recognize what is not egalitarian. If your fucking country wants to do some dumb shit because it doesn't affect fucking anything, you can go ahead and do that. But in my country, where we once had these standards, where the overwhelming majority of Americans still believe in them, but they're being fucking thwarted anyways, I'm gonna say that I care. Because I'm watching what's going on. And what we're not paying attention to is the fucking fact that corporations are going to result in the collapse of this fucking country. And we're going to see the rise of totalitarian governments to the international stage unlike ever before. Because of shit like this. Because we are too busy virtue signaling about bullshit. All for the sake of diversity. All for the sake of all this fucking nonsense. Because it makes us feel, makes certain people feel fucking good and righteous. So I'm going to move on because otherwise I'm going to be screaming about this. And we're going to move on to this video by Kyle Kulinski. And I know that certain people are going to get a good chuckle out of this at the moment, but I am just going to say this up front. I'm not going to preface this too much before we just get to it, okay? What I've just laid out for you is the fact that if you want to adhere to egalitarian principles, you cannot support this. You cannot support Muslims and Sikhs being able to have different standards, okay? Not just fucking private sector, but within the state. As state representatives, you cannot support this and call yourself a secularist. You cannot say that you support secularism and also the fact that if you are religious, you could do whatever the fuck you want. I'm going to calm down. You are also not egalitarian, okay? You are not egalitarian if you support this. Because what you are saying to everyone else, white, black, Christian, anything else other than Sikh and fucking Muslim. If you're anybody else, you have these rules that you have to adhere to. As a fucking law enforcement officer, as a fucking member of the U.S. military, you have to adhere to these laws. You have to adhere to these standards. But if you're anybody else, you don't have to. You don't have to fucking adhere to these rules. You don't have to adhere to these standards. You don't have to adhere to American values. You don't have to adhere to the fucking Constitution. You can do whatever the fuck you please because you are religious. So one last time, unequivocally, no question, no debate, there's no discussion here to have. You are not egalitarian if you support this. You are strictly not secularist if you support this. Now let's watch the video.
So the NYPD made a policy change when it comes to religious officers. They're now allowing Sikhs to wear turbans while on duty. They didn't before. They allowed a smaller head cover, and then you would have to put your NYPD hat on over that. But now they're saying, okay, you could wear full turbans now. And obviously that's part of Sikhism, and the Sikh officers, which, by the way, there were over 100, they wanted to do that. So they're also allowing, is another slight change they made, beards up to a ½ an inch long for religious reasons. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the articles I read on this mentioned it. Another one didn't. But one of the articles said This also applies to Muslims. So if Muslims want to wear, a religious headgear, they can wear it too now, when before they couldn't necessarily wear it. If Muslims also want to grow a beard up to half an inch, they can do it as well.
By the way, if you're an atheist, you have nothing to fear. You have these law enforcement officers that are more adherent to their own religion than the law, but you don't have to worry. Nothing's going to happen to you. Nothing's going to happen to atheists. They're going to be totally fine, because as we know overseas, there's no problems with Muslims. No problems. No problems in the Middle East with atheists. No fucking problems. No problems at all. If you're a Christian in the Middle East, if you're a Jew in the Middle East, no problems at all. There's no problem. Nothing to see here. You don't have to be afraid. It's just state agents that adhere to their religion more than they do the principles and the values of the country they've come to.
Now, this is an interesting issue because I have a very weird kind of mixed opinion on it. So am I in favor of allowing this? If it doesn't get in the way of the job, sure. Why not? You want to wear a turban, go right ahead. If it doesn't get in the way, sure. If you want to have a beard, I never understood that argument as to why a beard would be a problem in the first place. So yeah, I would allow it.
Being that I already prefaced what I have to say about this video, I don't really have much else to say other than, again, to reiterate, you cannot be secular and support this. You cannot be egalitarian and support this. And if you have a comment to leave it. Say how I'm wrong. Prove me wrong, other than the Supreme Court ruling, where I'll just read you Clarence Thomas's fucking dissent. Because it's that simple. He lays it out completely, what the issues are with this. And not in their entirety, but, I'll just play you the fucking video that I've already done on this. It hasn't changed at all in terms of what the issue is here. But we'll just continue.
The downside is they make very clear in the way it's worded. You're only allowed to wear the headgear for religious reasons. You're only allowed to wear the beard for religious reasons. And you have to get approval so each religious officer would have to get approval from the higher up for it. And they're going to give them the approval, but you have to get the approval. So what does that mean if you're only allowed to do it for religious reasons?
That is state recognition of religion. You have to appeal to the state to be recognized. And they do recognize it. That is not secularism. That is unequivocally not secular. It is antithetical to what secularism is. For the state to recognize you as an agent of the state while also practicing your religion. There is no equivocation here. There is no defense of this. If you support this, you are anti-secular. You do not support secularism. But my question is, how can you call yourself in your show secular talk when this is consistent for you? You are not secular. You adhere more to the special rights of religious people in the face at the expense of secularism in America. Kyle, I cannot begin to even tell you how much I can't stand you, how detrimental you are in everything that you do. You are a fucking piece of shit. And that's why I'm fucking unsubscribing from this piece of shit. I am done with him. I am fucking done. Because no one's going to be able to come back at me with this. No one's going to be able to come back and say, no, actually, Louis, you're wrong. No one! Because I'm not wrong. I'm absolutely in the right on this one. And I have been since the beginning. I have been right, I've been consistent, and I've been adhering to the exact same principles, of which millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Americans believe in. Egalitarianism. They do not support this. They do not support special rights for law enforcement officers who also want to practice their religion while on the fucking job. How long does this need to go on before you have cops killing people in the name of their religion? And somehow they're able to probably get away with it. We already have a fucking issue in this country with cops using force to degrees that are not fucking justified. But now you have fucking religious fundamentalists with a gun on the fucking streets, with the state on their side, and fucking progressives there to fucking back them. Oh, man. I'm just going to continue on, because if I don't continue, I'm just going to start screaming.
So that means if there's an atheist or a secular an agnostic, whatever, or a liberal Christian or Muslim or whatever. Well, actually, no, it wouldn't apply to the religious people. It would just apply to the atheists and the agnostics and the secularists and them.
It does not apply to Christians. You fucking moron. You said it yourself.
But if they decide, hey, I want to wear headgear for non-religious reasons, or I want to grow a beard for non-religious reasons. I like a beard. I like wearing a beard. I look better with a beard. I want to wear a beard. They wouldn't get approval. So atheists, agnostics, secularists, they would get shut down. You can't wear headgear. You can't wear a beard. If you're Sikh or Muslim, you can. You can wear your beard. You can wear your headgear. And you have to be consistent and objective in your policy. You can't single out religion for favoritism, because then that's anti-atheist and anti-secular bigotry. So that's not something anybody's going to talk about. Nobody's going to have this conversation in that framework. But if you think about it logically, that is what's happening here. Religious people, you could wear the beard, you could wear the headgear. Non-religious people, you can't. Well, then now you're discriminating against non-religious people. Just be consistent and allow everybody to wear it as long as it doesn't get in the way.
Kyle Kulinski, from Secular Talk, is not egalitarian. He is not a liberal. He is not a secularist. He is a progressive, without any room for denial. He is not a secularist. He is not a liberal. He is not egalitarian. If you say that he is, you are wrong and stupid. How many videos does this fucking guy need to release before that is fucking clear? For everyone. It's amazing to me that anyone fucking defends this guy. Anyone. He is irredeemable. He is worse than Jimmy Dore, and he could fucking hedge all he fucking wants and equivocate all he fucking wants. He is a progressive. He is not a liberal. He is not a secularist. He is not egalitarian. He is a progressive. He releases videos on a daily basis that I can use as evidence to support my position. What's the difference between him and Cenk Uygur? What is it? Someone tell me. Tell me right now in the fucking comments section. You tell me the difference between Kyle Kulinski and fucking Cenk Uygur. You tell me. And Anna Kasparian. You fucking tell me. Everyone loves to laugh at them. But they give this fucking cocksucker the benefit of the doubt. He doesn't deserve it. He is as bad as them. He is a fucking lackey of theirs, and fuck him. I'm done with him. I'm unsubscribing from him, and I'm going to tell you this, I'm calling on you to unsubscribe from him. He does not deserve his viewer base. He does not deserve support. He is as bad as the fucking Young Turks. He is irredeemable, and he needs to be dumped. For the rest of this, you're just going to enjoy some snippets from my older commentary. Because I have nothing else to say. So this girl tried to file an application to work for Abercrombie & Fitch, just a basic store. She took their test, passed everything, but Abercrombie & Fitch has a look policy in which they ban certain features for people, and this is a neutral policy in which you can't wear too much makeup or too much nail polish or too much of whatever. You also can't wear black and an assortment of other things that are in accordance to their dress code, essentially. So this case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was backed by the ACLU. Unfortunately, in this case, the ACLU, which I am a member of, backed this girl, Samantha Aloof, or whatever her name is. So in this case, this girl was to start working for Abercrombie & Fitch, but in the process, she was essentially rejected. Because she is a practicing Muslim who refused to remove her headscarf in order to work. This violated their look policy, and she was dismissed, or it was at least her hours were cut or something. I'd have to look more into this. But essentially, the finding by the court was that Abercrombie & Fitch was responsible for her termination, and this was in violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title 2007, I believe, and it was in part because of many different court cases and the idea of intentional discrimination. So the only justice in this case to dissent in this 8-1 decision was Clarence Thomas, and he actually wrote a pretty lengthy dissenting opinion. This is one where Clarence Thomas is actually correct. He is wholly correct in this decision, and every other justice is not, because of what they argue is lunacy. This is absolute lunacy that this can be interpreted as intentional discrimination. The fact is, and Clarence Thomas rightly identified it, this is saying this specific person who is religious deserves an exception to the rules that apply to everyone. And the thing that isn't said in this, at least not that I can see, is that if this was any other religious group, if this was any other fucking religious group, this wouldn't have reached the Supreme Court. This would not have reached the Supreme Court. But because this is a Muslim girl, this goes all the way to the Supreme Court. This is ruled 8-1 in favor of her being able to do whatever the fuck she pleases to everyone else's loss, to Abercrombie's loss, to every other employee's loss. They have to follow the look policy. They have to dress professionally in accordance to that corporation's policy. And I'm not in favor of corporations. I'm not a very corporate person. I really dislike big corporations, and especially petty corporations, like in this case with Abercrombie. I don't think it's a very genuine corporation. It seems to be very petty. But the fact remains is that this is a clear exception to a neutral policy in favor of someone specifically because they are religious. Because they are religious, they can do what the fuck they please. And the last time I checked, we aren't living in a fucking theocracy. We haven't codified, at least not yet, which religions are more true than the rest. But it seems to me that every single instance that it is given, every single instance that our Supreme Court or our Congress or any fucking agency that works for our government bends over backward to give every single possible advantage to the religious. They got to be exempt to different rules and different standards that everyone else fucking follows. How many Christians in this nation, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, could have worked for Abercrombie and Fitch without imposing their fucking religious beliefs, without talking about religion, without making religion a fucking issue? But the fact is that this Muslim girl could not leave her religion at the fucking store entrance. She has to bring and fucking impose her religion on every fucking person she runs in. This is clearly, flagrantly unconstitutional, in which you are saying because we have this one specific law that was created in the 20th century that has this type of interpretation to this specific portion of it, implying intentional discrimination, when this essentially is a neutral policy. This is not a discriminatory policy towards any religion, towards any fucking person. It is simply a matter of dress code. It is saying, as a company, we have these standards for how you are going to represent our company by working for us. And this is the Supreme Court saying, no, sorry, like 99% of people would have to adhere to this, but sorry, we have this one girl, this one person who's Muslim. She can do whatever the fuck she wants. Because if you tell her that, like everyone else, she has to wear a certain type of thing in order to work at our company, that's discrimination. This is a neutral policy that you say you are unwilling to follow, and so in that case, we're going to dismiss you. And because of that, she's the exception to the rule. She is no longer equal to me. If I walked in there and I was wearing some stupid shit, they would let me go. They wouldn't keep me there. I wouldn't be allowed. But because she's wearing a fucking headscarf, oh, that's discrimination. That's discrimination. Because she's a Muslim. We all know this is the reason. We all fucking know if it was any other fucking group, it wouldn't have been an issue. They would have lost. It would have been Abercrombie and Fitch, in which it would have been an 8-1 decision in their fucking favor. It seems to me that the only group in this country that people are willing to bend over backwards, are willing to accommodate and change every fucking thing they do in order to cater to, are Muslims. I don't see any other group in this country that is being catered to utterly. that isn't just religious, right? It isn't just religious groups that are being catered to by giving every fucking tax break and every other fucking benefit, special auditing rules. They get all of it. They get every fucking thing. Even if you look at Alito's opinion on this, it was ridiculous. It was fucking ridiculous because it contradicts the fact that, yeah, she never said anything about her religion, so they didn't know. They didn't fucking have any idea that this was going to be an issue, and it says right in the fucking case, they didn't know this was going to be a fucking problem before it was a problem. Before she showed up and was wearing the fucking headscarf, and they said, hey, that's in violation of our look policy, you can't wear that. And then it became an issue. We continue to make exceptions for the religious at everyone else's expense. Everyone that either doesn't care or doesn't see themselves as above everyone else or doesn't want to be the exception to the rules simply wants to be equal to other members of the society. This is special snowflake fucking policy. I'm sorry, I didn't remember when we drafted and passed a new amendment to the Constitution, the special snowflake amendment, where if you are a special snowflake, you can do whatever the fuck you please. But if you aren't, fuck you. I know that this is a more complicated case, but it is irritating. It is extremely irritating to me that I don't think the ACLU would have done this if she wasn't Muslim. They would not have done this if it wasn't something they can champion fucking social justice. If this wasn't one more social justice victory for a bunch of fucking hipsters that don't see themselves as equal to everyone else in their society. They're the special snowflakes. They deserve to be held to a special standard, unlike everyone else in society. It is not egalitarianism. This is discriminatory towards every other person that follow that fucking policy. They follow the standard, this chick doesn't. Why? Because she is a special snowflake. I utterly disagree with the opinions of the justices in this, other than fucking Thomas. Because he's the only one that understands that this is fucking making an exemption for someone that's religious. This is the government saying to a company, you're not allowed to have standards for religious people. If there are religious people, they are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. And last time I checked, we were a secular nation. And this is why I say, this is why it is important for people that consider themselves to be conservative Christians. The only way that you're going to win in this country is going to be if you saddle up and fucking side with atheists. If you saddle up and side with the people that are trying to get secularism back in fucking place in this country. Because you are losing and we're losing. Those of us that want to see an egalitarian society where all religious groups, regardless how big or small they are, follow the fucking rules and stand as equal to everyone else. If you want to see that happen, you have to get your shit together and join us. Because we're fucking 3% of this country. If you include the pussy agnostics who are probably fucking backing this chick because it's, oh man, social justice, then it's even less. It just amazes me. This is yet another blow to secularism in the United States. Another fucking declaration that if you're religious, you have no standards. You can do whatever the fuck you want.